Give me a little intro there, Gomer.
Let's put on the show.
You're listening to the Station 71 podcast. My name is Mario, and this week I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Beth
and Brian.
So we are going to be doing kind of a blue sky this week. Interesting topic that we were suggested, or that was on our topics list that we are slowly chipping through. That's was to plus up Disney Springs to give an idea or give some ideas that would draw some more traffic into Disney Springs, so it's just not another outdoor shopping mall. I think this is going to be a fun one. I am very excited for it, and I am excited to see what you guys have for it too.
Yeah.
But as always, let's do our news first. First thing that we have on here on our news list is that starting in early May, park hours look like they are extending just a little bit. Looks like May 1st, we're getting an extension for Magic Kingdom for an additional hour. And then after that, it's going to move to an additional 2. Same for, looks like Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom will be extending an hour sometime around May 1st to the 7th. Kind of so far looking like a temporary change, but could possibly be a little bit more permanent. I would just be excited for the parks to go back to regular hours.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, definitely. And just to have them more consistent so it's easier for planning and stuff. I feel like especially now that, Disney requires you to plan so far ahead that not having the hours bounce around so much would be way better.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is one of those weird things that, like, for me right now makes me not really want to plan a trip anytime soon. It's just the shortened hours and not knowing if I'm going to be able to do as much as I normally would is kind of a turnoff. But I think if they're slowly announcing additional hours, it could be a good thing.
Yeah.
Next thing that we've got on here is Run Disney has announced a retro 90s theme for the 2023 Walt Disney World Marathon Weekend 30th anniversary. Here is something that is actually may make me plan a trip. I would love to do a Run Disney event, and I think this might be a fun one.
So
I'm just really offended that retro is 90s now.
Yeah, that's
that
fair.
hurts my feelings.
Am
I retro?
You're so retro. Though I'm 100% tell you I'm not going to do this marathon event because I don't like running, but these designs slap.
They
really absolutely do.
So hard. Oh man, I want just more stuff like this available.
Yeah.
Back to the good old days.
Yeah.
Run Disney has always Oh, that hurt. Run Disney has always kind of like slightly interested me, but like if I was gonna do a marathon, I would rather do it at Disney. And that's that's a pretty hard sell because I don't really like running to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But
not only do I not like running, I don't actually do it at all. So if I were to do one of these races, it would be a walk Disney race for me.
Oh, absolutely.
A brisk walk Disney race.
Yeah, I would do something. They need to come out with something a little shorter than the 5K, and I'll do a nice leisurely stroll for one of these t-shirts.
I think they have like a fun run mile thing, maybe, but I don't know if that's for kids or not.
Well,
but I gotta say,
seems discriminatory.
I gotta say, I've done several 5Ks at a brisk walk, and Brian, you could definitely handle it. You're in much better shape than I am.
I don't run. I'm telling you, I do not run. I do not have. I'm not winded at all. So, but needless to say,
power walk.
Okay, I'll power walk it.
That's what I always do. The only time I run a 5K is like the last couple hundred feet to the finish line to look
Finish
like I'm running in
strong.
all
You
the
gotta
pictures.
look like you're doing. Yeah, exactly.
I do love on all the designs, like not only are they using the very 90s color schemes, like the bright yellows and pinks and everything, but they're using the throwback logo too, which is I really love that logo. I know it looks so dated, but in a good way to me.
Yeah. And I just love all the textures of like roller skating rink carpet, you know?
Yeah. It's just like there's not enough stuff on it. Add some squiggles and
Yes,
some
all the
triangles.
squiggles.
Oh man, it's like everybody in the 90s hated negative space, just had to put something everywhere.
Yep.
I love it.
Me
But
too.
that aesthetic is just so pleasing, and I'm noticing that that's kind of coming back, and it makes me happy.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it's probably coming back because, like you said, now it's the quote unquote retro.
It's okay.
That's okay.
We can, you know, if that's what it takes, if it has to be retro to bring my childhood back into fashion, I'll accept it.
Well, the last news topic that we have on here for tonight is that the soundtrack has been revealed for Guardians of the Galaxy. Do
you remember?
Go ahead.
Yeah.
I can't play any more than that, or I think we have to pay copyright for it. So
that is one of the like top 10 best songs in existence, and no one can change my mind.
I want to know how they're going to jam these 6 songs into this ride. That's what I kind of want to know.
You know, I'm really hoping that they do it like Rock and Roller Coaster, where you get a song. You know, I hope they don't try to do some mashup with this. Like, I want to listen to one song, and then if I have to write it again to do another one, then do that.
Okay, it would help if I read the entire article, because right under the track list, right under the track list, it says, "Here's the kicker: a single ride doesn't include all of these songs. In fact, Disney says you won't know which track you'll hear until you, you won't know which track you'll hear each time until you actually blast off." So it does sound like it is kind of going to be like Rock and Roller Coaster. But yeah, this list is something. We've got September, as Brian alluded to. We have Disco Inferno. Everybody Wants to Rule the World, One Way or Another, Iran, and Conga.
I love it.
Yeah.
This is a way to get me to ride it 6 times.
Yeah, actually, I've never thought about that, but that's interesting.
Or more than 6, probably, because I won't be able to actually get each song each time, probably.
I really hope
lucky.
I really hope that there's at least some differences to the ride depending on the song. But
that would be very cool if they're able to work that in there.
Well, because I mean, that's how it is with the Mission Breakout, isn't it? Like that's
I believe
kind of how it is, but that's obviously a different type of ride. Like,
but you know, if they're going to use screen projections, like we always say, that's one of the easiest ways that you can make screen projections a little more palatable for most people. You know, like have it be different.
Yeah, for sure.
I do like that this article says that Disney has released the official soundtrack for Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind. They said that Imagineers started with over 100 potential songs for this attraction and rode the attraction over and over again, testing the various tracks to fit the spirit and movement of the coaster, which is interesting. I would love to be the person that does that. Disney, can we talk about this ride testing with the soundtrack, because that may be something I might be interested in.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that said, the coaster is right around the corner, and I'm excited to see the initial takes on it.
Yeah, for sure. It also says in the article that you can hear some of the songs that didn't make the cut into the final mix as you exit the ride. So that's kind of cool. You can hear like what could have been as you're leaving.
Neat. Yeah. I really hope that there's just some like weird random song in there that that now that we know that these are going to be the cut songs from the attraction, that they're going to get me thinking like, wow, this ride would be very different with this song.
Mm-hmm.
So all that said, I think it's time to now discuss our main topic for the night, plussing up Disney Springs. So we didn't really have any strict guidelines for this one. We just kind of decided that we were going to talk about it, see what our thoughts were and how we could potentially make Disney Springs better. Mine were mostly just general thoughts. I don't know if you guys had anything specific you wanted to talk about or any like big ideas.
No, it was mainly along the same
Mine's
line.
pretty.
I guess
pretty
before we
flexible, too.
really jump into it, though, like, what's your feelings on the current state of Disney Springs? Like, we always like to talk about, plussing up something, but how badly do y'all think Disney Springs needs to be plussed up right now?
I mean, I just feel like if you don't have a specific reason to go, then you're just kind of going there to waste time. I would like it to become more of a space where I could constantly be discovering new and cool things, which it is to an extent, but I don't know. I don't feel like it has a whole lot different vibe than a lot of other outdoor shopping areas,
Mm-hmm.
And I would like for it to have, a more unique vibe and I don't know, more excitement.
I kind of have the same feeling about Disney Springs. Like my whole thing with it is that I don't know, it feels just like, I don't want to say like an outdoor shopping mall because that is what our notes describe it as, but it really feels like it kind of has fallen into that. And the part that gets me with it is that there was stuff here, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
Not that Disney Quest was a big draw, but the concept of that I think is really neat. And I think like even before when it was it had like Pleasure Island and things like that, like the little places where people could go that weren't just like, hey, I'm coming here for dinner and a random shopping trip.
Mm-hmm.
I also think I don't want to get too far into like maybe the plus up stuff, but I think it's Disney Springs is the one weird thing where it started out as kind of exactly what I want it to be and went backwards into something else, right? Like
I completely agree with that.
uh,
And for me, I think Beth nailed it with saying that there's not a place you can't really go and explore and like find new stuff. Like there is extra things to do there besides just shopping, but like a big example for me is like Cirque du Soleil's there, but
yeah.
it's not like you're just gonna say, oh hey, let's go see Cirque du Soleil and pay this extravagant amount of money for these tickets. Like that's something you're gonna plan to go do that night.
Yeah.
And yeah, Disney Springs used to, and especially when it was downtown Disney, have stuff that you could just kind of like stumble into and go do.
And
I think that that's what it needs more of mostly.
And I think the part that kills me is like I kind of see what's happening here, right? Like if you look at City Walk, there's a bunch of pretty much exactly what Disney Springs has now. And it's there may be like a couple things that people just specifically go in and stop for, but I think it's the idea of where that is placed, right? Like City Walk is outside of Universal, so you have to walk through it when you get there, which kind of forces you into that little like tunnel of area. So, I'm not specifically riding a bus from my Disney hotel to go get Cold Stoning and then go see the Blue Man Group. Like that's not what's happening. Like it's there, and I have the option to do that if I wanted to. Like I think there's more incentive when it's like, oh, I'm leaving Universal, but I don't want to go back yet. Let me see if maybe there's some tickets here for the Blue Man Group or something like that. Like I think that is the difference between not those specific examples, but like that kind of where it's placed and how it functions. I think that's the big fundamental difference between the two and why City Walk works a lot better than Disney Springs does. I also think that City Walk has more unique stuff than Disney Springs does too. I think one of my things that's like a big complaint about Disney Springs for me is a lot of the stuff there is stuff that like is just in an outdoor shopping mall, right? Like all of those newer stores that they're adding either are luxury stores that I don't necessarily feel like I want to go into because obviously they don't cater to me, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but at the same time, they don't feel like they fit the vibe of where I feel like I should be.
Right.
Yeah, and I feel like I definitely don't want Disney Springs to feel like an outlet mall, but it feels like a luxury outlet mall in the sense that people are going to happen to be there on their Disney vacation, like on a not park day or whatever. But what average guest is going to go and drop, $180 on a Lily Pulitzer dress at the Lily Pulitzer store, or like $200 on a artisan shaving kit at the Art of Shaving?
What kills me, like, those are ridiculous in my opinion, but it's like the jewelry stores too. Like, who's about to drop
Right.
thousands on like a diamond necklace in the middle of Disney? That just,
Yeah.
and again, it's like, I don't know how the inner workings go on, like who's making money from what. Like, obviously Disney's probably getting some kind of cut from this and renting out the locations and all that kind of stuff, but some of these stores, I don't understand how they stay afloat.
Yeah.
And I mean, some of them I think have the right idea. Like, not to say that like the luxury stores should still be there, but I think like if they're specifically partnering with Disney Springs and like maybe they have a specific merch drop, like the one that I think of is like Vera Bradley does the lines of Disney things, and
Mm-hmm.
they do exclusives that are sometimes specifically for their Disney Springs store. I think that's a cool concept, but I also don't know that it necessarily fits. But I don't know. That's just a
Yeah.
random tidbit of thought.
And I'm not saying that you shouldn't have a couple of luxury type of stores, but make them more relevant, I think. Like Basin, for example. It's like all bath, like a luxury bath products, like bath soaps and salts and bath bombs and stuff. It's like that has to be targeted at locals, right? Because normal people on vacation aren't going to go buy a bath bomb that they're going to try to put in their suitcase on the ride home.
I wouldn't
You
think
know what
so.
I'm saying? Like, I feel like the things that make sense to me are like like the Ray-Ban store or whatever, Oakley's Sunglass Hut type of store. People on vacation, I feel like, will buy luxury sunglasses because they're like, oh, I lost my sunglasses, or I've been looking for a good excuse, and this is a good excuse because I'm in the Florida sun.
Or even I forgot to pack my sunglasses and this is the only
Right.
option.
But
Like,
I just feel like some of them are just like, people have to be coming here from nearby to shop for some of this stuff, right?
I think honestly that was kind of when they started announcing a lot of these stores, that was kind of my takeaway for a lot of it. Was it feels like they're trying to bring in a local crowd somewhere, and this just happened to be where they were. But I also think that there are things that they could have done to do those same things and not specifically, I don't know.
I guess I just wish that overall that the main focus of Disney Springs was entertainment instead of shopping. And I feel like shopping and eating are the two goals at Disney Springs.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that'll change, but they could focus a little bit more on entertainment.
Well,
Well,
and my
listen,
whole
this
thing,
is our blue sky thing, right? So let me dream.
yeah. And my whole thing with it too is that I feel like Disney Springs is the one part of Walt Disney World that doesn't actually feel like Disney. And that's the weirdest thing to try to explain. Like, we had the last time we were down there, we had a friend meet us at Disney Springs to pick us up and take us to the airport, but she lives in Florida and had never been to Disney and has no intentions of going. And when she got there, she was like, "Oh, this is actually pretty great." I was like, "This is probably the furthest thing that we could actually get from Disney."
Yeah.
And that's just so bizarre to me because, like, even though it's a part of the bubble, it really doesn't feel it.
Yeah. The only
I mean-
parts of it that kind of feel like Disney are like World of Disney and maybe like the co-op shops.
They kind of do, but they feel more like an outlet still.
And
Yeah.
I think, to me, it almost doesn't even feel like it's in the Disney bubble sometimes, because like you said, there are a lot of people that are coming there that aren't on vacation. They're locals that are coming there to shop. And I think, that on top of like now parking's kind of ridiculous getting in there and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of just like, yeah, this doesn't feel like I'm going into this magical experience like I would at the parks.
So I guess a good place to start with this revamp is, what do you think the purpose of Disney Springs should be? Like, what do you guys think? What purpose does it serve? Obviously, as a non-ticketed, non-gated area of Disney property.
Well, I'll say that from personal experience, one of the reasons that I think City Walk is better than Disney, or doing this specific thing better than Disney Springs, is that it has actual bars that stay open late. Nothing at Disney Springs stays open past like 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
You know, there are bars at City Walk that stay open until like 2 a.m. Like they close at 2. So if you really want to go out and party on your vacation, but you don't want to leave the bubble that you're in, Universal should be the place that you decide you want to go, because you can actually go and stay out late. I think that's one thing that Disney Springs could be doing better, is bringing back more nightlife.
And that was my biggest one too. And Mario alluded to it earlier, but I mean, back when we had Pleasure Island at Downtown Disney, there were clubs that you could go to. And, you know, obviously those were open up late. And I think that's part of that nightlife that needs to come back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like you said, where do you go now? If you want to stay up, you hope that there's a nice hotel bar at whatever resort you're staying at.
Yeah.
Sure, maybe, but not everybody's staying at, a hotel that has, or a resort that has one. So where do you go there? I mean, it seems like such a simple thing for Disney to do, and we all know that Disney strives so hard to keep people within that bubble to stay on property throughout the whole vacation, and that's something that just does, like, that takes such minimal effort. Hey, bars, stay open later in Disney Springs. Boom, problem solved. Like, they could do that so easily.
Yeah. I also want to say that at City Walk, there is a karaoke bar, and I think that would go over brilliantly at Disney Springs.
A karaoke bar in Disney feels like such a missed opportunity, especially in Springs. Like
who doesn't want to go sing Disney songs?
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, the best part of that is you have such a wide library of things to select that is a combination of like the most obscure Disney songs you could possibly select, or songs that everybody knows and loves because they've grown up with them. And it just feels like it's such a miss.
Yeah.
I would go even further than that and say have like half of a karaoke bar that's like public karaoke, and then do the other like Korean style where you can have like private rooms with a party and like go in there and do that. That would be awesome.
That would be really fun.
I think, to kind of go back a step too, I think one of the things that you kind of talked about it with the like Pleasure Island and stuff, Brian, but I think that one thing that Disney could do to make Disney Springs a little bit more Disney-like is involve Imagineering a bit. I feel like that kind of sounds like I'm throwing some shade here and saying that this is very unimagineered, but I think like when Disney Springs came out, they made this whole big like, this is the backstory behind it, and it felt like a worse backstory than Chester and Hester's has. Which like,
it's like a bottling company or something, right?
Yeah, they tried to tell a story, but didn't really try to tell the story. Like, it felt like the story was such an afterthought, and they thought, oh, well, this is Disney, it needs a concept, but the concept wasn't entirely thought out before they started doing stuff. And I think that that's kind of the big miss. And like, they don't all have to tie together. Everything doesn't have to be a cohesive land, but at least like, let Imagineering do a hokey, nightclub or something. And
like the Adventurers Club.
That's what I was going to say. Like, you end up with the Adventurers Club, and then you end up with something that's, something that people think fondly of when they go back. I really don't think, like, even on paper, right? Like, people, talk about the Adventurers Club and, all of the cool things that happen there. People that weren't even able to see it, think about it, like, talk about it all the time online. I don't think there's a thing in Disney Springs right now that when it goes away, people are going to be like, yeah, remember that thing? I missed that. That was a staple of our Disney vacation.
I mean, what would it even be now? It's just like my favorite store, your favorite restaurant. Yeah, there's no like experience place like that now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I mean, we know that Disney can still build an experience. Like, honestly, to me, this is I understand why. Um, Before I say what I'm about to say, I understand why this is where it is, but I feel like it's almost a missed opportunity to not put a Trader Sam's in Disney Springs instead of the Polynesian, right? Like, obviously the footprint would have been bigger and they would have had the place to do it, but I feel like that's the kind of entertainment experience that they need in a place like this where there's not really one.
Yes, they
Mm-hmm.
need. I will agree very strongly that they need something like that
Yeah.
there.
No,
I
no,
do
But not
not, but
specifically.
yeah,
no.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
definitely.
But that's what I mean.
Agreed.
Like, that kind of concept is what feels like it would work really well in a place like that. And I think that it's a missed opportunity to not do something like that. That's just the easiest grab of like, hey, this could have been here and it would have worked probably exceptionally well.
Hmm. Oh, definitely. I mean, even looking at a smaller bar like Jock Lindsay's that a lot of people love almost to the same extent as Trader Sam's. Like
Hmm.
that does so well just because it has very good theming and good drinks, and that's all you really need. So why not more of that?
Yeah. I mean, that being said, I would like a little more of a, you know how when you go to see like Yeehaw Bob or whatever, there's like inside jokes and stuff
Hmm.
Yes.
and participation like that. I would like to see something like that, like the Adventurers Club was, come back to Disney Springs because kind of like you were saying, Mario, is like that makes it a staple on some people's trips when they have such a good time and they can come back and like show it to their friends and be like, ooh, this is something I want to show you because I feel like I belonged last
Yes.
time and it's going to
Hmm.
make you feel like you belong this time.
And the thing that gets me just talking about more of the nighttime entertainment, more of the bars open later and that kind of stuff. It's like maybe it's because I am of like the generation I am, but I feel like this us the like late 20s, the early 30-year olds are
Thank
like.
you.
Oh, did you think I was gonna not include
Well, I appreciate being included.
but like no, I feel like our generation were the kids that grew up in the Disney Renaissance. Like I feel like we are such a huge part of like the overall Disney like community. And we
Mhm.
are now the ones that are at that age that would really be enjoying the nightlife and that kind of stuff. So it seems like such a missed opportunity for Disney to not like give these, late millennials what they want, this opportunity to enjoy the Disney fandom, the entertainment, while also like spending money at a bar or a club for them. I
Yeah.
think I think you could just take Pleasure Island as it was, plop it back down in Disney Springs, change nothing, and it would be hugely successful.
Totally agree.
Yeah, I agree. I also think that there's so many cool concepts that they could do, right? Like, they could do supposedly I'm sorry, I was reading through the backstory. Supposedly Disney Springs is set in 1980 or the 1800s. I don't get that vibe at all.
No.
Um what if they did like a speakeasy of some sort?
Well, so
Well, they
they
have
have the
one,
Edison,
Yeah, but I
right? I
mean,
mean, like,
like,
but they also
actually,
have Enzo's Hideaway Tunnel Bar,
yeah.
which is quite literally the speakeasy theme. But I feel like the problem with that, and I've been there a few times, and it's a nice bar, but it's very like hoity-toity artisan drinks, you
hmm,
know. And I feel like a speakeasy, you kind of want it to be more, you know, prohibition feeling. Like you're
yeah,
not having like the top shelf whiskey on the rocks, you know, you're having like cocktails with whatever we could get our hands on because it's prohibition era. You know what I mean? Like I feel like they could have been more creative with it. And the theming itself, like inside, is really cool looking. It literally looks like you're in a tunnel, like a bootlegger tunnel, but I feel like it doesn't match the vibe of the menu.
hmm.
But I also want them to commit to the theme. That's the problem that I have.
Mhm.
Like, okay, yeah, there is a quote unquote speakeasy, but like, does it feel like one? Not entirely.
Right.
Like, there's a place in Atlantic City called Okachi, where if you've ever been in a casino, most of them have like these little mini storefronts that kind of look like the airport stores. And this looks like that, but it's a Japanese candy store. And when you walk in, you have to tell the person at the front desk that you have a reservation, and they actually open a wall up and you go inside, and it's a big restaurant. Like, I
I
want
love
that.
that.
I
Yeah.
like that's the kind of thing that I want. Here, I'm going to send you pictures because it just looks really cool. But like something like that as a speakeasy, like that experience alone would be enough to sell the experience. Even, I mean, the food would
Mhm.
have to be really good and everything too, but that little step would be enough to justify it, I think.
Yeah. Or just like really heavily themed bars with cool experiences in general. Like, obviously, the opening up a wall thing is really dope, and I would love to experience something like that. But on our last trip, we went to this bar in downtown Orlando called Cocktails and Screams, which was Halloween themed or like spooky horror themed bar. And there was an experience that we unfortunately did not get to partake in that was in like a back room that you had to have a reservation for, but you basically had like your, I don't know, voodoo man would throw, like you would pick pieces of bones up or whatever, and they would have symbols on them. This is kind of what she explained to me. I didn't totally get it, but you would pick out your stuff and then he would like shake them up and throw it and make a drink based on what you picked,
Oh,
kind of
interesting.
thing. And I thought that was really cool. And I feel like it'd be really easy to incorporate something like that with as many villains as Disney has, specifically Dr. Facilier. He's literally a voodoo man. But I feel like that
Wild.
kind of brings me back to a thought I was having as we were talking about all of this, which was that I feel like a lot of the reason Disney's not doing this stuff is because they're trying to solidify themselves as we are family, 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 family. And if you have too many, like too much nightlife, it becomes like we're about, nightlife, not about the family experience. But I don't really feel like that's a good reason.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're totally right about that. But then there's a lot of Disney Springs that it doesn't scream like family. I feel like if anything, they've tried to kind of get away from that with the theming and stuff of Disney Springs. It's like, hey, this isn't cute and cuddly and filled with all the characters like it is in the park. Like we try to go more upscale and like adult with the theming of it. So
Mm-hmm.
I,
Yeah.
obviously not saying there needs to be like inappropriate stuff in Disney Springs, but I don't think there's anything wrong. I mean, there was nothing wrong with Pleasure Island. I feel like it's like you had something for adults that they could go and do, away from the kids, and I think that's a big part of any kind of like family vacation. Of course, it's great to spend time with your family, but sometimes you want an hour or two away to go have fun and do something else, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Well,
Right.
and
Or
even
God
off,
forbid the childless millennials want to go do something.
Yeah. Oh wait, I'm not that anymore.
You're not one anymore.
Damn it.
Well, but even off of
Olive can
that,
come. She's chill.
I get to judge y'all now, so
you get to judge us all.
uh-uh.
Yeah, even off of that too, like I don't know. I feel like having those extra destinations makes it so that like you attract not only the family crowd, but there's also there is a crowd that has basically what we're looking for out of Disney. Like, I don't know, how cool would it be to have those, I don't want to say like nightclubs, but those I guess bar and restaurant experiences where it actually feels like an experience, but it makes you want to come back and experience it as an adult, right? Like,
Mhm.
I could see those buildings walking by as a kid and then be like, oh, I know, like that as a kid, to me, that's like, oh, that's something I can do when I'm older, right? Like that gives me as
Yeah.
a child something to be like, oh, that's something I can do when I'm older and I when I want to come back. Like,
Mm-hmm.
because of that whole mentality, that's the whole reason I spent my 21st birthday at Disney. Like,
Yeah.
Right.
I think you're missing, not that that's a massive demographic, but I think that does also say, like, hey, your audience is also growing up too. There are people that like these things too as adults.
Man, that is so true. I remember, when me and my family would go on a trip, and I have an older brother, so, like I think usually like one night of the trip, we normally stay at the campground. So, my parents would say, hey, chill out at the campground, watch a movie, ride your bikes around, whatever. We're going to go to Pleasure Island for a couple hours and then come back. And the whole time I thought, like, man, I can't wait till I get to do that too. Like, that place must be so cool. It doesn't exist. but no, just like Mario was saying, it's like, it is like, you'll want to do that when you get older, and it's unfortunately not there for us.
Well,
Right.
I do think you have that right too, that they're like, Disney feels like they're almost moving away from those things because their mentality is they want to be the family friendly park. Like, that's the family friendly destination. And I think that, because of that, a lot of their experiences that could be, great adult only experiences kind of get the back seat. Like, for example, one big one that we kind of talked about in our Discord recently was jelly rolls. Like, that seems like on paper a very cool concept. Is it very out of the way and not a great place to get to if you're not staying at the boardwalk? Absolutely.
Yep.
But like, that sounds like something that as an adult I would want to experience at Disney.
Right. And I feel like the big problem here is the more they try to make themselves like, hey, we're the family friendly, not necessarily targeting at young adults or adult audiences. It's like, we grew up loving Disney and became adults that love Disney. If we keep loving Disney, we will instill that in our children and the cycle will continue. So you would think they want to cater to all demographics so that you'll continue to want to go there no matter how old you are, no matter what stage of life you're in. And I don't feel like they're really trying to do that lately.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's also, I think the unfortunate excuse for that is that Disney has the built-in fandom of children, right? Like,
Yeah,
I
right.
think, their movies obviously cater to a younger audience, and they play those commercials on TV where Cinderella walks on the screen and a kid's like, oh, that's my favorite princess, I want to go see her. Like, that's it sells itself, unfortunately.
The only issue is the kid can't pay for a trip to Disney.
There
so
it
you
is.
don't have stuff
Yeah.
that's going to actually bring the adults in, and you're not catering to them as well. You're not going to sell tickets.
Like, some kids will have to nag the crap out of their parents to get them to go to a place they don't want to go.
Yeah.
It's fair. It's fair. So now that we've kind of identified the issue and talked a little bit about it, one of the other things that I know we've kind of talked about before that I think we should definitely talk about is like these interactive experience type of things that pop up all the time, like escape rooms, and the fact that Disney doesn't do anything like that.
That is such a huge missed opportunity. Do you know how I would do an escape room literally every single time I went to Disney World? Honestly, I do escape rooms when I go to Orlando. They're just not Disney escape rooms because they don't exist.
If y'all don't know, Beth's a slight escape room fan.
I love escape rooms. They're so much fun, and I would love to do a Disney themed one. Like, I've literally done at least 2 or 3 escape rooms on a Disney vacation just because I love doing them so much, and I've done all the ones that are within a decent driving distance to myself. So it's fun to do it when you're out of town because you're like, oh, I've never done this one before. So if they literally just had like a handful of escape rooms, I would make a point to do them.
And I wanted to bring this one up specifically because, like, one, I think the escape room theme, again, bringing it back to what I said before, I think if they let Imagineers design an escape room, that would by far be probably one of the best ones.
It would be incredible.
Yeah. Like, think about how well themed like a lot of the lands and attractions and stuff are in the parks already. Throw that into a small enclosed space where you're trying to solve puzzles. That would be an Imagineer field day, I feel like.
Oh my gosh. I would love that so much.
And on top of that, I feel like it's also not a massive footprint, right? Like, a lot of those
No.
places are in like strip mall centers and stuff
yeah,
like
the ones
that.
Right.
around me are tiny.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you literally just need like, depending on how in depth you want to get, like 2 or 3 bedroom sized rooms.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I also wanted to bring that up because one of the things that I feel like is such a weird thing that's happened in terms of like Disney stuff lately is that the void was there and then it was gone.
Yes.
And I feel like that's
R.I.P.
Yes.
such a missed opportunity because that to me feels like the perfect thing to put in Disney Springs, right? Like
Yeah.
a small experience. It's going to keep you there for hours. Maybe it's not going to suck up a ton of people, but that's something that I may specifically go just to Disney Springs for and then spend the time there because if I'm going to Disney Springs, I'm going to get dinner at Disney Springs. I'm going to want to
Yep.
hang out there for a little bit like because I'm going for this one specific thing. And I think maybe that kind of counteracts the point that we were talking about with like Cirque du Soleil and stuff like that, but you need those experiences that can change out easily, right? Like
And those ones that I think serve that dual purpose that, like you're saying, you can plan to go there and do it. Or while you're there, you might say, oh, hey, let's check it out. Okay, it's going to be like 2 hours before we can do it. We'll just hang out here for a little
yeah,
bit longer and then go do that. Like, I think that's a good
Mhm.
mid range where you could plan to do it, but also stumble into it.
yeah. I also think those experiences, like obviously escape rooms and stuff like that, it's an easy thing to talk about. It's an easy thing to sell. But like I think that it needs those experiences like the AMC theater that's there. I think that's a pretty I mean, it still feels weird, but I think that has a purpose and a place there. I think that
Oh, I love that movie theater.
I've never
Like
actually been there.
the fact that you can order food and have it delivered to your seat while you're watching a movie is amazing.
Yeah. I mean, the
I think
concept of
that
it
I
sounds
wish every
great.
movie theater did that.
um but yeah, I think like concepts like that and like Splitsville and all of the just kind of like, hey, I need something to do for a couple hours. I think that's like Disney Springs should be the place for stuff like that. I mean,
Mhm.
granted, they're probably never super busy, right? Like, I can't imagine that people plan to go to the AMC theater or Splitsville every vacation that they're at the park. So it's probably like that's probably why they don't do it, but it still feels I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but stuff like that. I could see the theater. Say it's your break day from the parks, and you have dinner reservations in Disney Springs. You don't have anything to do. Catch a movie a few hours before you go eat.
Yeah.
So specifically for me, like I don't know if I guess we didn't really cover this. Maybe this should have been a place that I should have brought it up at the beginning, but for us flying in, right? Like Disney Springs was always our alternative to a pool day, right? Like for our family when we would come in, it would either be the first day or the last day you would go to the pool or Disney Springs because you're not there long enough to get a park ticket for something and at the same time you may be coming in just late where your park ticket doesn't really matter. And I feel like that's kind of the purpose that it should serve.
Yeah.
And I think like those little things would definitely help with that.
Yeah, and I feel like it wouldn't be too hard to like incorporate things that made those experiences like a little more unique. Like I think it's unique ish that you can order food to your seat and like you have a server and a button that you can press if you want to order something else at a movie theater. I feel like that's kind of a novel thing, but it's not like exclusive to Disney Springs. Same thing with a bowling alley. It's not exclusive to Disney Springs, but if they did things, I don't know, like because it's Disney Springs, they could do like special events leading up to the
Oh,
premiere of a Disney movie or a Marvel movie
Yeah.
or a Star Wars movie because they own all of that.
that's a really good point. I think for every movie that comes out, that AMC should have some kind of special event because you also
Even
have
if it's
people
just
that
like
would,
trivia or something,
yeah,
like
or even
they could
like,
do it easily.
if they're planning to do a costume character, have that character meet outside and wave to people. Like
Yeah.
little
Right.
things like that would make it kind of more of an event than an actual like, hey, I'm just stopping by.
Mhm. Yeah.
This is a small aside. You probably want to cut this, but I remember when Beauty and the Beast
Oh,
came out.
no.
We went to a theater near us to see it, and oh man, they had like a dude come out in the jankiest beast costume I've ever seen before. It was funny because they had somebody come out like dressed up as Belle first, and we were like standing in line, and I was like, it's like, wow, they actually did a really good job on Belle. Like, dress is on point. Like, had the jewelry and everything. She's in the like the yellow like evening gown or whatever, and then Beast walked out. I was like,
Oh
Oh,
no.
no.
oh no, it was rough. But
Man.
yeah. But
I
I'm sure
mean,
Disney
and
would do it better, you know?
yes, for sure, because they could actually get like the real Belle and Beast to go out there. Even if it wasn't like a meet and greet, like you don't want to spend like a whole bunch of time with them there. Put them behind a rope and have, like you
Yeah.
said, have them wave to people.
Yeah, and I mean, even doing that, doing trivia, like you said, like those little things, I think go a huge distance. Like that just, to me, feels like it's probably, it would be beneficial for them to do them. But I guess, I don't know. Maybe I'm just on the opposite end of that.
So what about like Splitsville? Why couldn't they do like Disney nights where they play like Disney music and have like projections or something? Like, you know how they do like glow bowling?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They could do that, but with like projections of Disney characters or cool stuff going on.
See, but and then that gets into like the logistics of how these like leasing agreements work with the
Right.
companies. That's what I wonder is, because you go, some of them honor Disney gift cards, some of them don't.
Yeah.
So stuff like that, it's like, well, are they licensed to use that music? I know that they're on Disney property right now, but does that necessarily mean that they can do that? So I don't know. And again, I don't think there's anything wrong with bringing in like the third party companies to have the stores and the restaurants and the places like that. But then you also lose some of those abilities by not having the stuff run by Disney.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Splitsville is or not. I assumed it wasn't.
No,
Yeah.
I think it's a standalone company. But I mean, I feel like if Disney's willing to make those types of partnerships with them to lease their spaces, then they would be open to negotiations on, hey, I think this is going to give you a ton of business if you do this, and we're willing to give you a good rate on it, for licensing characters or whatever they need to do.
Right.
So another idea I had was, I think that holiday anything, whatever holiday it is always a big deal. And I know that Disney Springs already does do some stuff, but like, the Christmas tree trail or whatever. But what if they did more seasonal stuff like that? Like, I don't know, maybe an Easter egg hunt or something.
Oh my gosh, that would be so much fun.
Like, I feel like they have done stuff in the past where it's like the Epcot quote unquote Easter egg hunts where you find the thing and you put the sticker on the map corresponding to where you found it.
Yeah.
But like a legit Easter egg hunt where they open up and there's Easter eggs hidden all over Disney Springs. You know what I'm saying?
So
That'd be
Or
cool.
they hide them throughout the day. They have something like that. Or they have, I know we've talked before about why don't they put the Osborne spectacle there? What are those lights doing? Sitting in a warehouse?
They're at Give Kids the World, if my understanding is correct.
Well, they could do a version of it. Give Kids the World definitely deserves it more, but
For sure.
they
But
could
there's
do a
more
version
lights.
of
Those
it.
aren't the only lights. in the
Right, they
world.
could
We
buy
get
lights.
Oh man, but yeah,
Or just like, do they do trick or treating at Disney Springs?
They don't, but that would be so easy to do. I think the problem with that is because there are these hard ticketed events and there are things in the parks that specifically are stuff like that. You run into the, does this devalue my Halloween party ticket to do trick or treating at Disney Springs? I don't think it does, but
Yeah. I mean, and I don't think that they should do like a full out, Halloween party or whatever. And I'm not saying give them handfuls of candy, but if you give like a couple pieces of candy, like, or a handful of candy with purchase. Do you know how cheap candy is? And Disney has a partnership with Mars or whatever. So I'm sure they probably get it for little to nothing.
Ghirardelli's gonna step in and be like,
Well, they already give you free candy
Yeah.
when you walk in the door.
No, I mean, I think that's an excellent idea. I do think it would be a logistical nightmare to try to like get the majority of the stores like on board with that. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you would hope that a lot of them would say, "Hey, this will bring in more business, so it's going to be worth it."
Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe this is also a side of a conversation that we had earlier, but one of the things that I think it's funny to me is everybody used to talk about how not Disney themed like Rainforest Cafe and T-Rex were. But I think a lot of the things in Disney Springs are less themed than those two things now.
Mhm.
Oh yeah,
Which is weird because I never thought I would see that. But you're talking about like trying to get all the stores and everything on brand. I feel like that's one of those, or not on brand, on like the same page for the logistics of doing something like that. That's what like made me think of this is like now, Rainforest Cafe and T-Rex, two things that kind of felt like they were maybe just Disney adjacent, feel like they're a relic of the past because everything else is so far removed, but like 10 steps beyond where they were.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It would be cool?
Yeah.
And this is coming from a very childlike mind, so this I feel like would work really well is if they did like a Disney exclusive Build-A-Bear.
Ooh.
Oh yeah.
Like
Oh man,
have all like a bunch of different Disney characters you could build.
I seriously can't believe something like that doesn't already exist.
Like they do that at T-Rex, they make you can make like a dinosaur, I think. But if you had like a whole store and it's like get your, Disney best friend.
I mean,
Because
they
kids are
kind
always
of,
walking around the parks with stuffed
Yeah,
animals.
that's a money printing machine. That's probably the one that would be the cheapest for them to implement and easiest for them to do.
they kind of had that at one point, except it was build your own Mr. Potato Head at Once Upon a Toy.
Oh my god.
That,
I don't really think that's on the same
yeah,
page.
that's on a different scale.
That does sound kind of fun though.
You know what I was thinking too? Well, look, I'm looking at a map of Disney Springs right now, and that's kind of where I'm on these weird tangents with things. Another idea, if they wanted to kind of keep it more shopping, was make this more or less the place of like, oh, I saw this thing in the park, I forgot to get it, and now I need to get it. Like that's kind of how I view World of Disney for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that it's kind of also fallen more into like, this is going to sound super weird, but kind of like a Disney Home Goods.
Yeah.
That is so accurate.
That's a very good description.
Oh man, that really is.
But I think that like for me, that used to be the thing with Disney Springs was like, if I saw something in the park and I knew I wanted it, one, it's a good incentive for parents to be like, hey, if this may be a stupid purchase, but if you really want this, we can go to get it at Disney Springs later. Does it devalue the idea of exclusive merch and stuff? Maybe a little bit. But at the same time, like, that's really not that big of a thing anyway. Like, it shouldn't be, at least.
No.
Yeah, and like I get the concept with like limited edition stuff or like event exclusive stuff, but like realistically, who's going to go into World of Disney and buy like a bunch of Haunted Mansion merchandise and they never wrote it? Like I feel like you're
Resellers.
that's a good point.
But also,
Which is
like,
another thing Disney Springs needs to be doing better is managing the
Yes.
Yeah.
resellers.
Well, and I think, I don't know. I think when they were doing those exclusive merch drop things at Disney Springs, like that kind of worked in the resellers' favor, but that was also a good concept, right? Like all of those exclusive park Funko Pop things, most people were going to Disney Springs to get them because it's just an outdoor shopping mall.
Right. And you don't have like, not that people should have to pay to get merchandise, but for stuff like that, at least if you were doing it in the park, it's like, I don't think a lot of people are going to pay for, a $200 ticket to get into the parks to try to buy this stuff to resell. I mean, obviously probably most of them have annual passes, but still, like, it would weed some of it out.
Well, and outside of that,
Two per person, no matter what it is. I don't care. There's no reason that a person needs more than two things. If you want to get that thing for yourself and 5 friends, I'm sorry, you don't need to do that.
Yeah.
Yep.
They can come get it themselves. I've said my piece. This 10 things per person drives me insane. I literally, when I went to Festival of the Arts in February, they had no pins. No, not a single pin that said Festival of the Arts on it.
That's wild.
And I'm just like, that is insane. I get limited edition stuff. I went kind of late in the festival. I get the limited edition stuff not being there. But not a single pin?
Yeah.
Like, it's gotten so insane. I just really wish that they would crack down more on it. I'm going to step off my soapbox now.
I had a thought, and it's totally.
I'm sorry.
Gone.
I
It's
totally.
fine. Oh no, I remember what I was gonna say. So one of the things that I was kind of thinking about that too is outside of the hey, I forgot to get this thing. Disney Springs, functionally as a I do not have a park ticket for the day. I think that would also work really well for the people that are like, oh shoot, I promised this person I'd bring them home a souvenir and didn't do it.
Yeah.
I mean the Disney stores in the airport kind of do that purpose too, but they never have anything good in them.
And also, not everybody flies.
That's true too.
Mm-hmm.
And then the only other big thing that I specifically had on here is just more unique and themed dining, but not things that I can get anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Which feels weird to say, but I don't know. Some of the chain-y stuff that's here is good, and I won't discredit it for that. But there's a lot of it. There's a lot of things that I can get anywhere else.
Right. I mean, I feel like there's actually kind of few places you can go out to eat at Disney Springs that are exclusive to Disney Springs.
Mm-hmm.
Even the Edison, which is one of the more unique experiences at Disney Springs, is not exclusive to Disney Springs.
Yeah. And I think the funny thing about a lot of these places is if you don't really look into them past oh, this is in front of me, they kind of almost seem like they should be unique. They really tried to pick the things that weren't going to be a Olive Garden in Disney Springs, but there's
upscale
still
Olive Garden instead.
Right. To be completely fair, Blaze Pizza isn't really a thing around here. I didn't know that was a chain until after we had eaten at it at Disney.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a couple of places like that where it's oh, if I don't look past oh, I see this here, you wouldn't really know.
Mm-hmm.
Or
I just feel
lean into that more and get restaurants, even fast food restaurants that are localized like that, to come in so that when you go on vacation, people from different areas, put a White Castle there. I've never even seen a White Castle in my life.
Oh, yeah, don't do that.
Okay,
yeah, I get the point.
I get the sentiment, but
yes.
Please don't put that in Disney Springs.
So think
right.
It's like Club Cool, but
yeah,
different.
Club Cool, but fast food.
Yeah, something like that.
Fries around the world.
You know what? Actually, they're never going to do this, but let me dream for a second. It would be really fun is if they had not at Disney Springs necessarily, but just somewhere in general, a regionalized fast food food court.
Oh, damn.
You get a Bojangles and what else? What do you guys have that I don't probably don't have? I think Bojangles is definitely a Southeastern thing.
The hard part about this is everybody thinks that their exclusive things are everywhere.
Do you guys know what I'm talking? No. I know Brian knows Bojangles, right?
Yeah. I know what it is, but
I know Bojangles.
I know what it is, but
if you're from Georgia, you have to know Bojangles.
I know
or just here's a kind of like you were saying with Brian, a Club Cool, but entire restaurants in a food court. I want to do this.
I also think
this is my business plan. No one steal it.
Okay. Let's make that happen.
Here's a question for you guys. I don't know if are we still on the topic of food and stuff, because I had a question that I just
Yeah, go
thought
for
about.
it.
What things do you think work really well at Disney Springs? Because I have one specific thing in mind that probably is not necessarily that great of a thing, but I want to see if maybe we're on the same page there.
Definitely Jock Lindsay's.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think kind of a deep cut, but one of my favorite, not even because of the food, but I think Raglan Road does such a good job of giving you entertainment like we were talking about, and also like a unique dining experience. I would
Yeah.
like to see more stuff like that.
I am constantly worried that Raglan Road is going to disappear one day.
I hope not. I mean, the food is very good. Don't take that as like the food's bad. Like it's just like Irish food isn't necessarily one of my favorite types of food.
Yeah.
But it's also one of those things like, I don't know, at least around me, there's not like that many. There's like one Irish restaurant around me I know.
Right.
You know, it's like that's
Yeah.
a unique dining experience that I feel like a lot of people don't get. And then also having such lively entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's not Disney IP or anything like that. It's its own thing. I think I need more stuff like that.
Yeah.
I know what Disney Springs does well.
What's that?
They give Eddie Maserati a place to dance.
Yes.
They need to hire him
Yes.
and just have him be like, I know he's already a staple of Disney Springs, but we must protect this man at all costs.
See that the Imagineers need to pull him into the overall story and theming. of Disney
Yes.
Springs.
Oh my God, please. That would be so funny.
Somebody needs to paint a mural on one of the buildings of that man.
He deserves it.
He does. He's earned his place.
He has.
Kind of in conjunction with that, I wish that, like, if Disney were to go back to the idea of Streetmosphere, which I think we're kind of moving away from, I would love to see Disney Springs as a place where they give us some of that. Like, even if they kept the stores and everything the same, just have random characters walking around doing little street performances. They had that pre-COVID for like some stuff, but it was always like they had DJs and things that, you know, there was an improv like beatboxing hip hop group thing that was out there all the time. Like,
boy, that, yeah.
But like they're not great, but give
Ryan
me
was
more
not
things
a
like
fan,
that.
obviously.
I'm not. I absolutely love a lot of the live entertainment. I like to sit down and listen to musicians, and I'll say a lot of times they get some very, very talented people to come in there and play. I would not group the beatboxers into that group.
I've heard but have not seen, but kind of like that idea is just, I think if you're going to keep it as like an outdoor shopping center, give people a reason to stay longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
That's really that's the overall thing, is that it needs to be more than dining and shopping, and Disney seems to be leaning so heavily into that now. That I think like everything we talked about is that there needs to be more entertainment stuff to keep people around, so that they will continue shopping and eating. But,
yeah,
you know, at the end of the day, I don't know. Like, I'm local-ish, so I feel that it's different for me. But, you know, if I was planning a trip, you know, let's say I was getting in late and I had an early flight out, I'm not going to try to move a lot of stuff around to try to make it to Disney Springs on a trip if it doesn't work. You know, like I would definitely try to move stuff to get into the parks, or even if I decided that, you know, on a non-park day, I want to go like the water park or something like that. Like, I would move stuff around to make that happen. But with Disney Springs as it is now, it is mainly a shopping and dining center, and it doesn't have enough entertainment to make me want to stick around.
Yeah.
Y'all, I got it.
Oh no.
They should put something in there for like the hardcore Disney nerds that's like a rotating exhibit of artifacts.
Oh.
That would get me there.
Yes.
And that would get me there every time they changed it.
Or here's what they should do. And they're never going to do this. This is absolutely never going to be a thing that they're going to do. How about they have a store? Did you guys hear that dinging?
Mm-mm.
No.
Oh, something just dinged on my computer, and I don't know. I guess it's not the recording thing because it's still going. Anyway, what they should do is they should open a store like Universal has, where they sell some of those old Disney things. They won't
Yes, the
because Cast
Legacy
Connection.
store or whatever.
Yeah, but like I think it's just crazy that Universal has that in City Walk,
Yeah,
and Disney's is locked behind the fact that you have to be employed by them. I guess it's because
which is
it's
crazy
Disney.
because they could sell it at a discount, but still more than they sell it at Cast Connection if they made it open to the public.
Yeah, or even if you want to keep Cast Connection like still a thing, have the merch and stuff go there first and then move it to that store.
Yeah,
Like then you give the
that's a
incentive
great
of,
idea.
yeah, like you give, I mean, yeah, you'll lose out on some of the like, oh, this is, you'll have cast members buying it in troves, but like the same time, then it kind of gives that exclusivity of like, hey, because I'm a cast member, I can purchase this.
Yeah. I mean, half the stuff at Cast Connection is worthless already anyway, and cast members aren't going to buy it. So give the general public a chance. They'll buy anything that's if it's cheap enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I going back to this too because I started this thought and again didn't think like finish it. I think that's kind of my theme for tonight. I think one of the things that works really well that isn't necessarily Disney, but like is kind of it teeters that line of like this is kind of an experience is the Coca-Cola Rooftop Bar. I think like even something like that, it's good for kids because it's not necessarily an adults only place, but that is like a hey, it's an outside of the parks club cool kind of, and you can get exclusive things there. And you also
Yeah.
have the like, hey, this is a nice place to sit and look over all of Disney Springs. I like that as a concept too, and I think that stuff like that kind of works.
Yeah. And you
mean-
can meet the Coca-Cola bear.
Everyone's favorite meet and greet.
He is very cute, I will say.
Yeah. Well, any other ideas to plus up Disney Springs?
Putt-putt.
There
It's
you go.
not a bad place for it, honestly.
It
I don't think so.
isn't. I mean, City Walk has it.
And again, I mean, I know obviously I've spoken of my love for putt-putt, but it again, another thing that you
A true
don't have to
romantic as
necessarily-
always.
Yes. Oh. Settle down, ladies.
Ooh.
But really, it's another thing that you can not necessarily have to plan to go to Disney Springs for, but do it while you're there.
Here's an idea. And since Disney Springs is already a bunch of, storefronts and buildings and whatnot, how about instead of demoing that to make a putt-putt center, have indoor mini golf and do
There you go.
like that way you can do your whole theming. You can go, all in on the concept, and it's not something that you can see or get into unless you have that ticketed reservation.
I like
And you
that.
can do special effects.
Yes.
And I say take this one step further. Let's get the stores involved. Could you imagine like having the different holes like themed after like
Oh,
a
that'd be
Lego hole where you have to go
cute.
through, or like one that's themed after T-Rex and his dinosaurs and that kind of stuff. Like I
That
bet a
would be
lot of them, especially
cute.
the staple ones that have been there a long time, would sign on for that.
Yeah.
The
And
Lego
it
store-
also isn't like a direct competitor really with the other putt-putt ones because if it's raining outside, you could still
Right.
go,
Yeah. The Lego store has always been a weird one to me because it's not necessarily Disney, but it always felt Disney because I guess it's just been there for forever.
Yep.
Anywho, anything else that you guys want to plus up in here or talk about in Disney Springs?
No, I think we improved it significantly with all of our ideas.
Yeah, and I think my final takeaway that I have from all of this is, I don't know if you, maybe again, this is something that I should have led the episode with. When I walk around Disney Springs right now, there are chunks that feel very defined to me, and it's mostly the stuff that's been there for a while, right? Like you walk in through the front where World of Disney is, and like that section feels pretty much like, downtown Disney used to. But then you walk through those stores and it kind of starts to get like a maze of buildings that look very samey until you hit like the theater, the AMC theater and all of that stuff. But like looking at this on a map, it really shouldn't feel that way because there are definitely like designated areas and neighborhoods, obviously the remains of downtown Disney, but like it would just be so easy for them to theme these even slightly and make it more Disney like.
Agree. I think that, the Imagineers that worked on this focused a lot on aesthetics, but not necessarily themed aesthetics.
Yeah.
I said it's a very, very beautiful outdoor shopping mall, but at the end of the day, it's themed like an upscale outdoor shopping mall, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Please stand clear of the doors. Por favor, manténganse alejado de las puertas.